But then there are agencies that are always trying to be sneaky and then like, oh, how much do you charge? And they don't want to open their card because they want as little as possible to pay you. They just looking for, oh, who's going to say yes among these people? You know, they just keep trying, right? Oh, this person say no. Okay, I'm going to go to the next creator. So they don't really value you as a creator. They just see you as a number. Right? The price tag is cheaper. Okay, I'll get you. Yeah. So these are the brands that you don't want to work with.
This is your host, Dyutima, but you can call me DJ. And I love to inspire food photographers to dream. I spent 15 years as an architect studying buildings and constructing hospitals before taking the biggest leap of faith of my life, which was setting up a food styling and food photography business right from scratch. If you're a dreamer like me, wanting to start a new photography business or grow your existing food photography business, jump right into a world where I share practical, actionable strategies to improve your photography skills, to work with clients, make more money, all with a fearless mindset. This is the My Food Lens podcast, and we take you one step closer to your dreams. So let's go. Welcome to part 2 of our conversation with M. And we are still chatting about our favorite topic, social media. You know, we spend so much time creating content for social media. And you know, what if there's an opportunity to actually make it profitable, to actually bring back a little revenue into our photography so that we can maybe offset the money that we spend on backdrops or props? Or if it's a full-time business, then why not add it to our diversified list of services that we offer our clients? Why not, right? But how to do it? It's such a gray world sometimes. And there are so many questions around it, especially when it comes to pricing and it comes to rights and it comes to, you know, finding the right clients, or it comes to algorithm and it comes to followers and engagement and likes. Like, what matters? What doesn't matter? There's so many questions around it, especially when we are setting out, and we are going to continue our jam-packed, super duper conversation with M, because today we are going to get all into money and experience and retainer clients and algorithm. All right. So are you ready for this conversation, or are you ready for this conversation? Here we go. How did you figure this out? Because this is like a service that you added a little bit later. So obviously you had a bit of idea that how much your photography was costing and what your rates were. But how did you figure out your pricing for social media related services? And maybe if you can also add some tips along the way on how photographers, you know, considering how brands are in today's climate, social media climate, if you could also add some tips for the photographers today and how they can price their similar work.
Oh my goodness. This is a very heavy subject to talk about. It could be a podcast on its own. So first of all, I think you need to know your worth. And knowing your worth means, you know, you can price yourself based on your experience, whether you're entry level, you're amateur, you're professional, or you're top pro. Then obviously that will come with different price tag. I think other than that, normally when brand approaches you, or like they'll probably like propose you a certain number, right? Years ago, it's really hard to determine like, okay, what is a good number? Yeah. Obviously, you don't want to work for free or get paid with chocolate or get paid with something that is not meaningful to you, because at the chips. It's really amazing how like many brands still do this.
I know.
And you shouldn't like cave in and do it just because, you know, as I mentioned before, you have to think about yourself as a business owner first, because as a business owner, you need to know the bottom line, right? Like, how much do you need to live? Your cost of living in Singapore will be different than Canada. So you need to know approximately how much you need in a month to sustain your lifestyle. And on top of that, like if you are running a business, then you need to know the costs, the fixed cost that comes with it, you know, like all equipments, I know this is the kind of the boring part. You need to know like all the cost basically that is associated with, running a business. And from there, then you have a general idea, right? Like, because the equipment that I use probably is different than the equipment that you use. If you're using a cell phone, obviously your cost is going to be a lot cheaper than if you're using the brand new DSLR, blah, 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 right?
Yeah,
So this has to be taken into account, right? And then at the end of the day, I feel like there's no like short answer for like, okay, you have to price it this much. But on top of that, you have to realize that I feel like most of us discounted our efforts in producing a content, whether it's a photography or a videography. A lot of people, they only account the time that they actively shooting, right? They're like, oh, I created this reel for 30 seconds and I worked for 5 hours. But that's not the reality though. Like, because you have to spend how many hours to prepare, right? Sometimes you have to cook it. You're one person operation, so you have to cook it, or like, so these kind of factors kind of like play into like how much at the end, like how much you can charge, right? Obviously, if you run a more complicated operation, then your number will be higher. But in general, I feel you should know like how much also you want to work in the month, because then I try to divide it like that. Like say, oh, I already know the cost, the fixed cost. I already know like what you call it, the variable cost that normally I spend around 25% of like the budget of my shooting for variable costs or whatever. And then I know like, okay, I want like in a month, for example, I need to earn say $4,000, for example. Then I already accounted like all of those costs. And then also like think about like, okay, for $4,000, how many days in that month that I want to work? For example, if I want to only work like 4 days, then at least I have to get paid like $1,000 per project or something like that, right?
Right.
Nowadays, it's so much easier if you want to do like content creation as sponsor posts. There is a website that is called FYPM. FYP, I believe.
Okay.
Do you know that website?
I don't know. I don't know.
It's on Instagram actually. So I think it was launched like probably a few years ago. Basically, it's the swearing word.
Yes.
You pay me. It's because it starts off F you pay me. Because there's no transparency in the content creation sponsorship world, right?
Right.
And then as content creators, sometimes you second guess yourself. Oh, am I undercharging? Am I overcharging? Most likely you're undercharging.
Yeah.
You're never overcharging. Because if a brand say like yes right away to you, that means you are undercharging. Because there should be a little struggle. Just today, a brand approaches me for like a certain type of sponsorship. And they said, oh, we only have a little budget. And this is an agency. So when it's an agency, they have the budget. They just don't want to spend the budget on you, right?
Yeah.
So they said like, oh, we only have like this amount of dollar to work with. And then I'm like, well, this is not the type of brand that I would be excited, like right away, I like jump off my seat and be like, oh, I really want to work with this brand. So that really motivated me to kind of like up my price, because I'm like, well, if I lose this brand, it's not like losing working with my, dream brand or whatever. So I just shoot my shot and I'd be like, okay, you know what? No, this doesn't work. And on top of that, they said that, we require 30 days whitelisting. So whitelisting is basically like paid ad. So they want to run it on their account and they want to do like paid ads. So imagine if they actually have like money to pay ads on your content and they don't want to pay you, right?
Yeah.
So I said, oh, no, I'm sorry, I can't do that. So I double of what they asked, right? I double of what they asked, and thinking in my brain, they're gonna say no, obviously, right? So they came back to me and they said, oh, they increased like maybe $200. They're like, oh, I'm sorry, we can only increase $200 from our last offer because we really have limited budget. And I didn't budge because I'm like, I really don't care. This is not a brand that like, I'm dying to work with. So I said like, I'm sorry, like, this is my bottom line, I have to run a business. This is how much minimally I need in order for me to produce a content. And guess what? They say yes. They said yes.
Now you need to work with them.
I know. And in my head, I was like, oh no, this is now a double sword, because then I wasn't expecting that they would say yes. But this just to show you that they do have the budget.
Yeah.
they
They're
just
just
wait for
pushing
people who
back.
they're just pushing back, and they are waiting for people who don't ask, right? Who just
Hmm.
accept and think like, because I think the mentality of content creator in the beginning, because this was something new for us,
Yeah.
we almost feel like, oh, if a brand can pay us any kind of money, oh, that's great. That's great. I'll take it. But no, you
Yeah.
need to know your worth.
Yeah.
That like not all brand is the right brand for you.
True.
Like if they don't see that they value your work, then it's good if they say no, right? You can move on to a different brand.
I have
So
two
yeah.
questions. I have two questions. This is so interesting. I love this. Thank you for sharing this. I have to ask two questions. Number one is, did you put a rate out upfront when you were talking to this agency? Did you
No.
have a number, or you asked them for the budget
no.
first?
Yeah. Sometimes it's helpful to gauge like where they're at. I often try to do that because you know what? Agencies who seriously want to work with you and value your work, they will be upfront about it. They will be transparent. They will be saying like, "Oh, I have this much to spend on this campaign." I've worked with agency before that are like, "Oh, we've had like say, I don't know, like $2,000 for example."
Yeah.
And I said like, "Oh no, this doesn't like work with my budget." And they'll be like, "Oh, okay, like I understand that your budget is higher. Okay, I'll circle back to you next campaign when I have this budget." So these are like, people that you want to work with because they're transparent about their budget. But then there are agencies that are always trying to be sneaky and they're like, "Oh, how much do you charge?" And they don't want to open their card because they want as little as possible to pay you. They're just looking for, oh, who's going to say yes among these people? They just keep trying, right? Oh, this person say no. Okay, I'm going to go to the next creator. So they don't really value you as a creator. They just see you as a number, right? The price tag is cheaper. Okay, I'll get you.
Yeah.
So these are the brands that you don't want to work with in the beginning too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my second question is that, so I'm speaking from the place of a commercial photographer. So I do a ton of restaurant photography, and that's the kind of work that I would price for. Now, let's say I had to go into the market and offer sponsored content. Now, this is very different from that style of photography where I'm shooting in restaurants or in the client's offices, or that kind of setup. I'm over here, I'm using the client's products and I'm creating content. So in terms of pricing, how different would you say are the two styles of pricing for these two styles of work?
I think like when you do traditional food photography in the restaurants or whatever you described just now, in terms of the process itself, it's more intense and more detailed in comparison to doing content creation, right? Because like for photography, you have to do the mood board, you have to come up with the concept, you have to write a contract, you have to do all these things, right? But these are the steps that some of them are not happening in content creations because most likely you don't have to come up with a mood board. They just come up with a brief. They already have a brief and it's very loosely, right? They only have a certain guidelines that you have to follow. So in that sense that I don't want to say that it use less skill, but it use less of your time. Basically. The time essence in this sense.
Also energy, I guess.
And energy
because of going back and forth, carrying your equipment, also hiring a team to execute it on the set.
So you cannot expect to be paid in the same way as traditional photography.
Got it.
So so the expectation is different because the amount of work is also different, and obviously the type of work that you do is different too, right?
But okay, so you kind of have two packages. A different, if you're a commercial photographer and you're also doing content work for social media, then it's two different packages, and you have to have a different pricing strategy for each one. I love it.
I feel like with traditional photography, I'm more strict in a sense that, I know like my time worth, like for example, like if you're an amateur, $75 an hour or something like that, and you tally up, okay, I spend like 20 hours or something like that, and you can come up with a more clear number. But with like social media partnership, there's so many different factors that kind of factor in, like your engagement rate, your reach, all that kind of things, and how new you are in the content creation. How good is your content in terms of retention? It's almost, it feels like you can pitch yourself based on how you see yourself, like there's no standard.
The
Because then
softer skills, the more humane side
yeah,
of, is it?
yeah,
Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
yeah, a little bit. And then I mean, like all the brands that you work with for sponsorship or whatever, they are so diverse. Like, even when you think it's a global brand, doesn't mean that they have like they want to spend $10,000, $1,000 on you. Sometimes because they're a global brand, they just take that advantage, thinking like, okay, creator wants to work with me because I am popular. They'll pay you very little. So it's very hard to. So the easiest way is to just like ask them plainly. Do you have a budget for it?
Yeah.
And then work from there. And then
Yeah.
whatever they give you, you double it or you triple it because that's not the budget, right? And see if whatever you double or triple, does it work with your costs, your living expenses, running a business? Does it fit within your financial needs? Yeah.
And and that's your overall business. Like if you're doing other kind of photography for different clients, like for example, social media is one aspect, but if you're also doing for the commercial side in real time,
then that will be different.
Yeah, and that would get accounted into your overall business,
exactly,
revenue. So
yeah, exactly.
I'm just really curious that, when we approach brands or when we have a project brief that comes in, then what is the client's expectations? They basically expect us to just go in and create the post and create the deliverables, which are whatever videos, photos that they want. Or are there certain metrics that they come in to measure and to see really the success of that post? Like, okay, we are looking at the engagement rate. Are they sitting there to measure? Or for them, all that matters is that you've posted, they are familiar with your community or your followers, and that's the end of it. Or, the chances of them coming back to you will really depend on how high your engagement is, how well the post has done. What are they really measuring? Do they matter in any way to them?
Okay, to answer this, I feel like, I guess in the beginning, it depends on your relationship with the brand. I've personally never worked with, maybe in the past, I've worked with like transactional brands who just like cares about, okay, I want you to get like certain likes, but they never will explicitly say, I'm sorry, can I
explicitly?
They would never like explicitly say like, I want you 400 likes or anything like that. No, they wouldn't say that. But of course, that would determine your next partnership, whether you will be working with them again, because that they will see if you are the right content creator, you have the right audience that they want to speak to, right? So no, they don't necessarily say, oh, I want certain blah, blah, blah. But like, in my partnership with a brand, normally like, at the end, post the content going live, maybe 7 days, I will send them all the insight and analytics, right? And I'm very lucky to work with brands who normally quite chill. Like, we go through it together and be like, oh, okay, this post comparison to the last post that we did together, this one doing well because of certain things. So we can adapt that for the next post, the next future partnership together. So I think I'm lucky in this way because I try to look for brands that are relational. They care more about growing together and nurturing the relationship instead of a give and take kind of relationship. I pay you, you make this, I want you to perform. So there are brands out there who are like that. You can tell after a while. And these brands normally, they don't treat like their creators very well because it's transactional. So because once you're done with them, if they don't like you or they don't like how you perform, they just say goodbye. But there are other type of brands too who are more relational. So they actually value your work and they value like your engagement with audience, right? So it's this brand has an expectation of slow growth. So it's not like trying to go viral or anything. Like, I mean, that would be nice if you do go viral, right? That would always be like, the bonus. But they understand that relationship built over time, including building brand trustworthiness with like, the audience too. That takes some time. And that would not take just like, it's not going to take one partnership and then everybody would start, converting and buying, right? It takes some time. So they understand that. So it depends on the goals of the brand. And it depends on who you want to work with too, right? So after a while working in content creation world, you start seeing like these types of different brands. So then you want to keep the brands who value that kind of relationship instead of just like, here, I pay you the money, you do what I want, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is such a great segue, because I really wanted to ask, like, first of all, you brought up this point of where you sit down after 7 days of posting, you sit down with the brand and you go through the analytics. Wow, that's amazing. That's such a good way to build trust and transparency in a relationship,
Exactly.
so that you know that you are both working towards the same thing.
Yeah.
Your the goal, the intention, and the purpose, everything, everyone's on the same page. And there's such a good amount of trust that the brand has in you, because they know that you're rooting for them, you're working for them, that you are not there to showcase your best talents, you are there to showcase their product using your best talents. So I think that's such a great practice. I hope our listeners are taking that away from this, a good practice to build trust and also have a client become a repeat client. That's something we all want. We work so hard on pitching and getting our foot in the door. And when we have a good client, then we definitely want to have them, a good long working relationship. Can you share one or two more tips maybe for photographers, so they can tap into, the existing good clients and turn them into like repeat clients?
Yeah. So I have repeating clients that mentioned to me that, because I feel like they're probably a co-op or something like that. So like their business requires like giving reports to like different stakeholders every now and then. And they say like, oh, we really like working with you because you make it easy for us to give all the reports to our stakeholders, because all your insight, your analytics, everything is neatly compiled. And then so when we have to present it, it's clear what we've been up to, how we spend our budget and things like that. And it makes me think that, being a good business person and photographer doesn't only mean you take good photography. On top of that, you are a service person, right? So like from beginning to end, you have to kind of like overview like your service in such a way that they feel that you care for them, like you actually rooting for them. You genuinely care that, okay, they're gonna present it to the stakeholder. Okay, I'll make your life easier by doing this thing. It's a simple thing that probably only take you like 20 minutes. But the benefit of that is they understand that you are in their best interest. So they want to come back with you because you make it easy for them, right? So I think that is one of the takeaway that I was like, oh, okay, thank you for letting me know, because like, I just thought like, it's a standard procedure. You just send all this, but no, it's not a standard procedure. So whatever you can do to like, up your service will, come back to you in a way that you're not going to expect, right?
You said make it easy. What is maybe another way that you would just make it easier for your client? Is there something that you're just like, make it convenient for them?
Yeah. So for example, if you already growing with these clients, and they care about certain campaigns, for example, like sustainability or something, and then that they have like a sustainability campaign coming up, then you can be proactive. You can be like sending an email, not for the reason to sell yourself, but be like, hey, I actually genuinely think about you. I know you have a campaign about sustainability. I was thinking about this idea, that I think will work really nicely with what you're trying to do. It's not like I just genuinely care that, maybe you're interested, and you'll be surprised at how responsive they are. And sometimes I feel it's moving away from, again, the transactional, where like you follow a brief, you just do what I said, to co-creating together. So they are actually taking into account like what you have to say, because now you are almost kind of like part of their team in a way.
Yes.
Like, okay, like, this, and I would say like, this would be something that my audience would like, something, a content that would interest them. And I think this would tie in with what your campaign is about, So they genuinely think that, okay, like, this could work. So it becomes a project together, not like just,
I love that. I mean, we could end our episode right here. This is absolute gold, really. And this isn't just for Social media, like this is for any
Yeah.
client,
Yeah,
really.
anything.
What you're saying right now is such a differentiator. It really,
Yeah.
elevates your status as a photographer in the eyes of your clients. You are not just somebody who's coming there to, push the shutter button. You are coming there with something on the table. You're one of the art directors. You are one of the, thinkers. You're a thought leader for them.
Exactly.
So that is a very, very prestigious status, I would say, to hold in a client's opinion. And I
Yeah,
think those are the relationships that go forward. I have a client,
exactly.
I think I've been working with them, like it's been 4.5 years. I've been working with them,
Wow.
and I sit in all the marketing meetings, and
Hmm.
whenever they are discussing an idea, there's always a question like, DJ, what do you think? Do you think this ties in?
That's awesome.
And
Yeah.
there have been times where I have completely changed the direction of their artwork. They've had these concepts for posters that we were going to print in the malls and everything, and just with one input of mine from a visual perspective, we have changed the entire thing. So that, I feel,
Hmm.
those are relationships that we want to build. And you said it so beautifully that we want to co-create with them. And if we have an idea, let's say like sustainability or anything, where we want to nurture their values with our values. So if you have an idea,
Exactly.
don't sit back and think that, oh, I'm not getting paid for this, so I'm
Yeah,
not going to float it out. I
exactly.
mean,
Yeah.
this is absolute gold. Thank you, Em. Like, this is my favorite section
You're
of
welcome.
our conversation. Really.
Yeah.
But tell me, like, you started doing this so early on, like 2017 was a long, long time ago in the social media world. Everything has changed.
Yeah. But I didn't get serious until like
Yeah.
2019, probably because I was still working other job, right? And
So
I was
much
just
has
doing
changed
this
since
like
then.
part-time. Yeah, the COVID really like changed like the landscape of like, what we do with our work.
So tell me what has changed.
But
So that's what I want to know. That what do you
mhm,
think has switched? What is a hot trend you're seeing, or a big change that you are
mhm,
seeing nowadays? As
mhm.
maybe compared to even 2019. What is it?
Yeah. I think I mentioned it earlier how like I think COVID changes like everything in terms of like being relatable, being real, right? I think part of the reason why TikTok is so successful is because it's showing real people with their real problems, showcasing, how they solve their real problems without being too, how do I say it? Without putting it in certain narratives that just looks perfect,
Very curated.
So yeah,
Yeah.
very curated, like Instagram, obviously. But
Yeah.
of course, there is a client for Instagram, there's a client for TikTok, there's different kind of clients for different marketing strategy, obviously, right? But I feel like with that, there's a shift in wanting to, as I mentioned before, getting deeper understanding of who their audiences are, and then they want to be more engaged. They want to be more real. They want to be more relatable. So they are more open in terms of contents now. Storytelling is such a big
Mm.
part of it. Because no, before it's just like, okay, very product focused, right? And then you just sell a product, you just tell them all the features. But nowadays, like maybe people don't want to be told. If they're genuinely curious about a product, they will look for
Yeah.
themselves like information. So your job is to tell why you want them to try from your personal experience. So storytelling and having a personal kind of brand is kind of really important. Even as a photographer, whether you do social content creation
Yeah.
or not, it's very important. Yeah, so storytelling becomes such a
Yeah.
big deal. And a lot of my retainer clients, they want to keep working with me because I'm sort of approaching the content creation very personally, but
Yes.
then still open to other whatever like things that they want to work with, right? Like certain issues that is close to them.
Mm.
Yeah, I know, like I'm passionate about sustainability and all that kind of stuff, like trying to be more supportive of local businesses. So it's something that they want to fit into the audience's life in a daily lives, not just like an ad where they see and they forget about it. They want to be kind of like relatable all the time.
Yeah.
So that's like one of the trend. That's why like if you see like Instagram Reel or TikTok, you see a lot of those contents have voiceover,
Mm.
because like voiceover is one of the way that you can capture people through your storytelling, right? That tell them like about things that maybe people are tired of reading long captions. So you just
Yeah.
tell them and they
Yeah.
listen. And then like, yeah. So storytelling is a big part of it.
Yeah.
I also, as I mentioned before, there's a shift because of storytelling. Now brands cares about what you think. So they want you to be co-creators.
Mm.
Yeah. So I feel there's a shift in that
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. And you fit in so beautifully into that because that
Oh,
is
thank you.
your USP. Really, that is your USP.
Thank
Everything
you.
looks beautiful in what you create, but really, there is a sense of warmth. A person can feel that they are part of the frame in the way yours doesn't look, like you said, so tough. Like I see these bakers sometimes and I see their videos and they are promoting a certain color powder or baking product or
Yeah.
something, and I just look at it and I'm like, I can never make that. You make all your cultural dishes, you bring so much of your tradition into your recipes, but the way you do it, it's just so soft, gentle. It's just easing
Thank
people into
you.
frame, really. So I can definitely understand why this idea of storytelling or connecting to the viewer relates so much to the brand when they see your work. It's definitely your USP. But tell me, Amy, I'm just curious. Like, I'm sure it's not been easy. I'm sure this whole, because social media is so fickle. It's so fickle, and
It is.
and we
It
do this
is.
full time, so
I
it's
know.
tough. Are there any like big or surprising lessons that you have really learned over the years as you worked with brands, especially for social media content?
Yeah, like I mean, I think filtering the types of brands, the type of partnership that you work with, is really important. Like, as much as you want to work with different kind of brands, like you need to understand that like, their business too, right? And sometimes businesses like not all business have nice practices. I have an experience where I was contracted to work on, I think, 6 videos or 8 videos. I don't remember. This is like a few years ago.
Hmm.
And this was an agency work. And this agency is global agency, very well known, right? So I'm like, okay, like they provided the contract. The contract looks good, everything looks good. And when I already submitted like all my contents, they ghosted me. They ghosted me completely.
No.
Like the contact person, because it's almost like the global agency, so they have like agents that speaks to content creator from all over the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
And we actually had like a Zoom meeting and all that kind of stuff. So every of the step is legit, and you
Yes.
you thought,
Yes.
oh, okay, like, like I'm doing contract for 8 videos, like all
Yeah.
like, at once, seems like legit, right? And you good. And then when that happens, they just completely ghosted me. For 2 months, I couldn't get in touch with anybody.
Oh
I
my
tried to
God.
I tried to contact them. But then at the same time, I keep seeing my content uploaded to social
Okay.
media, to the client's social media. To the point I'm like, okay, you know what? I reached my limit. So I had to contact the client, right? And I said, like, look, I work with this agency that you work with, and they ghosted me. They didn't pay me. They didn't say anything.
Yeah.
They didn't have respect, basically.
Yeah.
And like after a while, they finally said, like, oh, really? Like this happened. So I'm so sorry. Like blah blah blah. Like
Hmm.
so unprofessional. You have to do your duty to like check, basically,
Yes.
like, is this legit or not? And like you have to put in like some kind of measures to protect yourself, right? At the time I was kind of like newish, so I thought like,
Yes.
okay, the contract from this agency definitely ironclad, really good. But then now, like, I put on my contract late payment fees, really high, 15%.
Oh,
Like, and they're
wow.
like, and then yeah, 15% per year, not per month.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this scares brands enough that it will weed away those red flag brands. People
Yeah.
who have a tendency to not want to pay or to run away, or I mean, it's a mutual respect, right? Like
Yeah. And sometimes
you
they do
provide
intend
them
to
with,
pay, but they are just so lax
Yeah.
about it, that they're just not going to do it on
Yeah,
time.
they don't. Yeah, but we are a business too, and we
Yeah.
have our expenses, and we need to keep it going, right? So now I do that all across like my contracts, and normally I could tell right away when it's a new client, and I try to get them on board, and they're like, "Oh, can you take that away? Like that clause that says
Mhm.
late payment." Then I started questioning. Okay, is this
Yeah.
something? Yeah,
Why is it
because then you
uncomfortable?
you know. Yeah, yeah, because the brands who know they're gonna pay you on time, they treat you well, they're gonna be like, I don't mind it that it's there. I know I'm gonna pay you on time, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's
yeah.
a
So that's
very
one
handy
of the
tip.
things.
That is such a great tip for,
Yeah,
because I mean, to be fair, we have all gone through this. We have all worked for a bag of chips.
yeah.
We have all been,
Oh yeah.
victims to late payments. Sometimes you have to, like, I
Oh
remember I
my
worked with a
gosh.
magazine and the magazine didn't pay me for like 8 months. So,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
and magazines are like that. But the thing is that this is such
Yeah,
a great tip to kind of safeguard
yeah,
yourself, from
yeah,
such incidences. So thank
yeah.
you for sharing that. I do feel like, talking about a bag of chips, I have one question which, if I don't ask, I might get hit by a shoe from someone who's listening.
Oh no.
And
Oh
that
no.
is, how do you say no to a bag of chips? I mean,
Oh,
when
you know
people
what?
they want to just exchange free product and they want to give you
Ugh.
exposure, and they have 500,000 followers, and they say, you know what? We're going to send you a product. Our product is
No.
priced at, $700, and all we need is one post, and we're going to send you a
Ah,
product. So would you be willing to do that? So maybe not chips, but maybe perfumes or maybe
oh
some
gosh.
appliance. How do you say no to this? And do you say no to this?
I I went through like a period in my working life where I was like a passionate advocate of like, don't, take like non-paid jobs. So I would actually educate them. And
Yeah.
I'll
Oh,
be like, yeah, yeah, I'll be like, like you're a business, like, like I'm a business person too. Like I need a bottom line to feed myself and my family, blah, blah, blah. But
yeah.
sometimes, one of these days, like there's too many of them, so like I know that the website that I mentioned to you earlier, the
Yeah. Yeah.
fypm.ip or something like that, they are actually available for people to see the list of brands who are like the strong offender, who like
Ooh.
never pay, yeah, who don't pay people, or who treat people badly, who goes. So this sort of like work as like a glass door, if you say, like it'll give a review of the brand, because then you can be more careful, if you decided to work with a brand, especially if it's a global brand that work with many, many, many influencer or social content creator, then you'll know it will be somewhere on the on that website, and
Mm.
you'll know if the review is good or not. So that's one of the things. But yeah, nowadays I just don't bother anymore. I just
Yeah.
delete it.
Oh, you just deleted.
Yeah.
You're like, not wasting my time. Yeah, I
No,
I
no,
spent maybe
because
2 minutes.
no, because I mean it depends. Like sometimes, like it's a local mom and pop shop. I have a soft spot for local mom and pop shop, and I know, like when you're starting a business, it's different. But if it's a global brand, they have the budget. They're just not nice. So I'm
Yeah.
like, what? I'm not gonna waste my time and energy to be mad about this, because they don't
Yeah.
even care. They'll find the next person who will say yes.
Yeah.
So for the rest of you who are listening to this, don't say yes.
Yeah.
It will
Yeah.
ruin it for the rest of us. It will ruin it for the
Exactly.
rest
I
of
think
us.
that's part
Yeah.
of why it's happening, is that a lot of folks would do it for product. And the thing is
Oh,
that, I spend 2 minutes. I literally spend 2 minutes and I'll be like, oh, okay. Would you like me to send you my fee for this? And boom, half of them vanish. So, yeah, but I
yeah.
think it's also
No.
unfortunate that kind of we photographers are to blame in a certain way as well,
Oh
because we
yeah.
do it. But the thing is that at least there's a bit more awareness. People understand
Yeah.
that it's not fair. It's not a one to
Yeah.
one. You can finish your bag of chips and you're done. It's not going to last you. It's not going to pay your bills. So it's just
Exactly.
not a fair exchange. So yeah, it's such a tough one. This is so hard to,
No.
kind of
Yeah.
navigate, because the whole social media, the digital world is full of such unfair
Mm-hmm.
exchanges. So talking about that, I want to come down to our last question, Em, and that
Of
is,
course.
you have years and such varied experiences, with
Mm-hmm.
in relation to social media related content or clients of different backgrounds, agencies, all of that. what do you think about the future? You have seen how social media has changed. So what do you think?
Mhm.
Like, do you think this is something where photographers should still put their time and energy right now to pursue clients
Mhm.
for content creation? You think this is booming right now? Or you think this is,
Mhm.
it's all going to go down. So channel your energy somewhere else, build your business a little bit more in a different way. What would be your advice to photographers today?
I think having a social media presence is important, of course, whether you want to pursue content creations or career that's related to it, it's up to you, because it's a completely different game, right? Like, we know we share a fair amount of frustration with how social media works. But then I feel like the demand for content creation will always be there because our generation and the next generation, behind us, they're all into their phones. And, when they spend their times on their phones, what do? Social media, right? Like, I mean,
Mm.
it's not going anywhere, right? The demand is only going to get higher. I feel like maybe the type of content will changes over time, but the demand will definitely be there. And, I feel like as photographers, we need to be smart and kind of like adapt to different things. There's so many different kind of factors that as a photographer sometimes we feel threatened by, the AI, the rise of, I don't know, so many different things. But ultimately, you're staying authentic as who you are in your presence in social media is who you are. It opens opportunity, right? It opens
Hmm.
opportunity for other things. Like, don't say no, because you never know, like it could be opening so many doors for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. What an encouraging note to finish our conversation on. I absolutely love it. I think this is going to be such a hot favorite with our listeners because there is so much good information that you've shared today. Really, it's so practical. It's absolutely on trend right now. We are all struggling with this question. And we all are
Mhm.
also struggling with how to handle the opportunities that come our way. So I love,
Mhm.
and I also love that you started so early, so you can actually you've given us such a good comparison of how things are changing, what to expect now, such good practices, and definitely where to say no. That
Yeah,
is,
no, say no.
where to put your
That's the
time and
most
energy.
important thing. Know your limit. Say no.
Yes, and know your worth. I think you
Yeah,
you
know your worth. That's
yeah.
important.
Amazing,
Yeah.
amazing, amazing. So, before you go, can you just share your social media handles? Can you share your website? Where can our audience come and see your beautiful work?
So you can find me at motkstudio.com. That's short of Milk of Thy Kindness. That's the same name on Instagram as well. So you can find me there and follow my journey, blabbering about food, picturing food, and all that stuff over there.
Yeah.
See
Oh,
you on the other side.
amazing, amazing. Thank you so much for being here today. What a gem of an episode. Thank you, Em.
Thank you so much, Jitima. I really enjoy speaking with you.
So that was M, and this was our two-part series on creating sponsored posts and client partnerships for social media. I have to say, I'm not really a biased person when it comes to my podcast episodes, but I really have to say that this conversation it has gone down as one of my absolute favorites because M has been so generous in sharing such incredible information. I mean, right from the tip of adding a late fee in your invoices to having the analytics discussion with your clients, how to bring something unique to the table, to pricing your services very practically, to also understanding that the world is your oyster. You might be sitting in a town in India, but you can work with any brand you want as long as there is a fit, right? Oh gosh, like I wish I had listened to an episode like this when I was starting out. I mean, even if you're not starting out, I think there are such good practices and there is so much solid information that M has left us with that, the next time that you are pitching to a client for social media related content creation, or you have not thought about it and now you're adding it to your list of services, I think this is really going to be your chichi. If you need to come back to this episode, come back to it, listen to it again, take some pointers, understand that you should know your worth. You are totally eligible. You can work with anyone you want. And this definitely has a future as we look forward, because social media is not going anywhere. Things might change, content might change, but boy, this can most definitely be a profitable diversification that you can add to your line of services. All right. With that, if you have any questions, you know where to find me. Email me at hello@myfoodlens.com or send me a DM on Instagram at Dyutama_myfoodlens. I'll see you next week with another episode. Until then, bye-bye.